What's up, guys? I woke up feeling dangerous today, so in addition to today's prize picks video, I'm also going to make this video, which is going to talk about monkey knife fight in the NBA slate tonight. There's 6 games on the board for the NBA schedule. February 16th, it is slightly after 1 p.m., so we're going to talk some monkey knife fight. They got 3 very interesting gameplays over there, types of games that you can play on monkey knife fight, all based around fantasy point projections for NBA. So if this is your first time on the channel, welcome to Out of Bounds DFS. My name's CJ, and on this channel, we talk all things single-player daily fantasy sports. So if you're into prize picks, monkey knife fight, Thrive Fantasy, or others, we're going to be talking about it here every single day. So hit the notification bell, definitely subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos. Liking this also lets me know that you like these videos and you want me to continue making more. So appreciate all of the input and all of the interactions with the content that I produce here on YouTube. Now, without further ado, let's start talking the monkey knife fight game types. So the first one we're going to look at is more or less, which is similar to prize picks, which is basically just a fantasy projection for an NBA player, and you have to choose, will they go over or more, or will they go under or less? So very simple concept, and we're going to buzz through these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players we have up on the board. Now, if you get an 8 out of 8 on monkey knife fight, if you get all 8 of these right, guys, you get 100 times your buy-in as a prize. So huge upside here. If you're good enough to nail all 8 of these players, you're not going to find 100x over on prize picks. This is only found on monkey knife fight to my knowledge. So very interesting way to play daily fantasy sports. So the first guy we're going to talk about is Giannis Attenticumpo, who is projected at 58.5 points. Now, if we head over to Roto Grinders and look at his projections, they've got him set up at 60.26 fantasy points. Now, we've got Roto Grinders preloaded with the FanDuel projections because FanDuel, monkey knife fight, and prize picks, they all use the same type of scoring for NBA daily fantasy. So Giannis Attenticumpo set at 60. Of course, we look at the game totals here and the spread. It looks like Milwaukee is set to score about 120 points as a team, almost 121 points as a team. So I do like the upside here for Giannis Attenticumpo. I think there is potential for him to definitely go over. So I'll take the more on that 58.5. Next guy we're going to talk about is Nikola Jokic, the Denver Nuggets big man facing the Boston Celtics tonight. Now they got his fantasy projection set at 55.5 points. So if we head back over to Roto Grinders and look at Nikola Jokic, they got him set up now at 54.09. So they kind of like the under or less so far on Nikola Jokic. Now if we look at this game total, it looks like Boston is set to be a little bit of a favorite here versus Denver by a few points. Not the greatest in terms of game total, but we do know what Nikola Jokic is capable of, as he's a 1.58 fantasy points per minute producer, and his usage rating is up there around 30. So those are very elite numbers for any player, but especially a big man like Joker. So they've got him at 54 on Roto Grinders, which would be less. He's projected for 55.5. So guys, I'm going to defy Roto Grinders, and I'm going to say that Nikola Jokic actually can put up more than 55.5. I'm kind of liking the more on Joker today. Now, the next guy we've got here is LeBron James. The LA Lakers are taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves. They've got LeBron set up at 52.5 fantasy points. So back to Roto Grinders we go. We're going to take a look at his projection over there. Well, they got him set up at 51 here, projected for 51, which would be less or under in this case for LeBron. Now looking at the game total here, LA 114.5. They're pretty sizable favorites on the road against this Minnesota Timberwolves team. I'm thinking that the less is going to be the way to go. I don't think Minnesota has the talent to stay in this game against the Lakers. So I believe that LeBron will not play much, if at all, in the fourth quarter. And so therefore, I'm going to take the less on LeBron James and that 52.5 fantasy point number. The next guy on the board is James Harden, the Brooklyn Nets shooting guard. They're taking on the Phoenix Suns tonight. Should be a fun game. No Kevin Durant for the Brooklyn Nets, so James Harden, Kyrie Irving will be thrust into even larger workloads. So 50.5 points as they take on Phoenix. Let's take a look at Harden over on Roto Grinders. Well, they've got him at 52.8. And I tend to agree here. I think that this is going to be a good situation for us to take the over or the more on James Harden in that 50.5 fantasy point projection. Now, looking at the game totals real quick, Phoenix 118.25. They're about a 5.5 point favorite at home against Brooklyn. Brooklyn 112.75. So should be a lot of fantasy production coming out of this game. I do think that James Harden easily goes over this 50.5, so I'm taking the more in this situation. Now, the next guy on the board is Damian Lillard, the Trailblazers point guard, who's taking on the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight. Thunder are going to be shorthanded, no SGA, so they're going to be pretty stripped of like any kind of talent or being able to compete with Portland here. Something to keep in mind. If we head over to the point guard position, they got Lillard projected at just over 51 at 51.08. So that would put him slightly over if you believe in these projections versus Monkey Knife Fight. Looking at the game totals here, OKC 109.75. They are a big underdog at home against Portland. Portland's got a pretty good total of 115.25. So because of the blowout here, this 49.5, I mean, to me, I think it's going to be a tough one for Damian Lillard. Let me look at his game logs real quick. 52.1, boop, 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 boop. So in his last 5 games, he's went over tonight's Monkey Knife Fight projection just twice. Man, this is going to be a tough call. This one might be the make or break, but I'm going to take the less. I'm going to say Damian Lillard does not reach 49.5 fantasy points. Let's talk the next guy, Jason Tatum, the Boston Celtics small forward. He's projected for 45.5 points taking on the Denver Nuggets tonight. Let's head over to Roto Grinders and look at Jason Tatum there. 44.75. So 44.75 would be an under. Looking at the game totals again here, Boston 3-point favorites at home. Not the highest totals on the slate in terms of points projected for each team. Boston set to score over 111 points. On this one, I think this game does stay close and competitive, and I think the only way it does is because Jason Tatum is balling. So I'm going to take the more on Jason Tatum here in this first look video. The next guy is Karl Anthony Towns. The Minnesota Timberwolves, as I mentioned before, are taking on the Los Angeles Lakers. No Anthony Davis for the Lakers, so maybe Karl Anthony Towns has an easier matchup against the likes of Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell. But let's look at Karl Anthony Towns on Roto Grinders and see where they have him projected. They got him at 43.76, so we round it up and call it 44. That still puts him under the 44.5 fantasy points that he's projected on Monkey Knife Fight. And because this game does have a large spread and Karl Anthony Towns has yet to really impress me, he's got one game where he's went over 44.5. His minutes are on the rise, but I think this one's going to get out of hand. I think LA's just too good of a team. If they come out and play and are firing on all cylinders like they should, I'm going to take the less on Karl Anthony Towns and think that, maybe he doesn't go the distance in this one. Maybe this game gets out of hand and he sits for some or most of the fourth quarter. And finally, the last guy, Kyrie Irving, Brooklyn Nets point guard. Kyrie Irving is set up at 47.63 fantasy points over on Roto Grinders, which puts him quite a bit over or more on this 44.5 points. So I'm not even going to dig too deep in this one. I like that. I think that the more makes a lot of sense. And yeah, you know what? Why not? Let's put $5 on it. I got a little $5 bill sitting in my account. If it hits, then I'm going for $500. So let's go for it. Boom. Locked in. Oh, wait, it says the game is no longer active. So maybe they changed the players out. Who knows? They tend to do that. You got to move quick on these daily fantasy sports sites. Anyway, maybe I'll go back in later and make another 8 pick and try to go for that 100x prize. The next game on the board in terms of daily fantasy sports game on Monkey Knife Fight is Rapid Fire. Rapid Fire, really simple premise here. It pits two NBA players against each other head to head, and quite simply, you just have to pick the player that's going to score the most fantasy points. Now, in some cases, you'll come across these players and they will have a bonus added on to whatever their fantasy total is. So, like Nikola Jokic, if he finishes with 50 fantasy points, well, he's also got a 3.5 point fantasy bonus here. So that would put him at 53.5, for example. So let's talk about the first matchup here. We've got Giannis Attenticumpo, Milwaukee Bucks forward, against Nikola Jokic, the Denver Nuggets center. Now, if we go and we look at both of these guys and their projections on the board tonight, we've got Giannis Attenticumpo, who's set at 60.26. So pretty big number there for Giannis Attenticumpo. We look at Nikola Jokic, he's at 54.09. So you take that 54 and you add on another 3.5, that puts him at about 57.5, 58 maybe. That still gives the edge to Giannis Attenticumpo here. And based on the game totals and the spread, I think I do favor Giannis here. This is a much higher total at 120 points versus Denver, who's at 108. Spread is also not terrible, but within reach where we can feel comfortable, confident playing a guy like Giannis. And Giannis has been playing very good basketball. So despite the bonus on Nikola Jokic, I'm going to stick with the Greek Freak and take him here in this head-to-head. The next matchup has LeBron James versus James Harden. And because I've already done my homework and my research, I'm just instantly clicking James Harden. That game's going to be a much higher scoring, much more competitive game. And I like the fact that James Harden and Chris Paul are facing off, former teammates in Houston. And I like the fact that James Harden's getting this 2.5 point bonus here, where LeBron on the other side may play well, but it could get out of hand against this Minnesota team who's not very talented and shorthanded without D'Angelo Russell tonight. So easy pick for me there. Damian Lillard now versus Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum getting a pretty big bonus here of 4.5 fantasy points. Let's take a look at how these guys stack up against one another. Now, Tatum, he's at about 44.75. If we round that up and call it 45 fantasy points, plus we tack on this bonus of 4.5, well, that's going to put him up there close to 50 fantasy points, which makes this a pretty tough play here, tough decision versus Damian Lillard. Now, Lillard, he is set up at 51.08. The thing that worries me about this one is that this game has the potential to blow out. And the Boston one, although the totals are a little bit lower for Boston versus Portland, it does look like it's going to stay competitive and probably go the distance. So I think Jason Tatum ends up seeing the floor late, and Damian Lillard, there's a chance that he doesn't if this game blows out. So I'm going to take Jason Tatum here in this head-to-head. The next guy we're going to discuss, or the next matchup we're going to discuss, is Karl Anthony Towns versus Kyrie Irving. Again, I mentioned Minnesota not being very good. Karl Anthony Towns just still kind of coming back after a long layoff. He's only played 3 games, had 1 game where he was, somewhat decent at over like 45 fantasy points. Kyrie Irving, on the other hand, no Kevin Durant. He served as the primary scorer, with James Harden, with Kevin Durant out of the lineup last night. Again, I like this matchup of Brooklyn and Phoenix, so I'm going to stick with Kyrie Irving here as I expect this game to be a wealth of fantasy production. So I'm going to stick with that Brooklyn-Phoenix game, really liking that one. And finally, we've got a battle of Zion Williamson, New Orleans Pelicans forward, versus Devin Booker, the shooting guard for the Phoenix Suns. And we're going to have to dig a little deeper here before we make any knee-jerk reactions. Zion Williamson is set at 40.4 fantasy points, plus he's getting a half-point bonus. So if we call it 41, I think that's not out of question there. About 41 points for Zion. Flipping over to the shooting guard position, Devin Booker is set up at 37.2. Now, although I do like the game between Phoenix and Brooklyn, the fact that Zion is projected higher and he's getting this bonus over Devin Booker, it gives him a few points of an advantage over Booker in terms of fantasy production and fantasy projections. So I'm going to go with Zion Williamson here, and that will round out my rapid fire 5 pick, which pays out 20 times your entry fee. So if you get all 5 right, you will make 20x on whatever you put in, anywhere from $2 up to $100. So very nice payout for that game. So finally, that brings us to the last game here, which is called Stat Shootout. And quite simply, you get to choose a goal of 169.5 fantasy points, 178.5 fantasy points, and 186.5 fantasy points. Now, each one of these, depending on the difficulty, pays out higher. So 1.5x, 2x, and 3x. Now, your goal is to basically draft 3 fantasy players that are going to combine to go over whatever goal you choose. So if you choose 169.5 and your 3 guys combine for 170 or more, well, then you're winning 1.5 times your money. But we're going to go big or go home here, and we're going to try and hit on this 186.5 fantasy point number for a 3 times payout, a triple up. So if we take a look at the 3 highest projected players on the board, let's go to all positions. Let's sort here. We've got Giannis Attenticumpo leading the way as a clear and distinguishable favorite in terms of highest scorer on tonight's slate. He leads Nikola Jokic by over 6 fantasy points. So he is by far the highest scoring one. Not only that, but we're also going to look at the ceiling, because these guys are going to have ceiling type performances in order for us to achieve this big number of 186.5. So if I pull up my calculator real quick and we type in 186.5, we divide by 3, we're going to need these guys to score on average about 62 to 63 fantasy points a piece. So who has the potential to do that? Well, right off the top here, Giannis Attenticumpo at 60.26 is his projection. His ceiling, in other words, how high he could potentially score. He could score up to about 76 fantasy points tonight. So I really like what I'm seeing out of Giannis Attenticumpo. He will definitely be in my 3 pick here. The next guy that we're going to have to draft will need to put up or have the potential to put up a major ceiling type of game. And Nikola Jokic, I'm actually going to pass on him just due to the fact that the game totals are fairly low here. I don't see this being a situation where he can hit that ceiling of 69 or more fantasy points. But James Harden is super interesting. He's set at 52.8 fantasy points, and his ceiling can be as high as 71.28. And I think this game lends itself to more of an upside type of game for James Harden, as Phoenix and Brooklyn are set to combine for well over 230 fantasy points. So I'm going Giannis Attenticumpo. I'm going to follow that up with James Harden. And so I just need one more guy to round out this lineup. Damian Lillard, yeah, pretty good situation for him, but in this case, I'm a little worried about the blowout, limiting him to maybe just 3 to 3.5 quarters of playing time. Not really loving that. LeBron James, same situation. Probably will have a pretty good fantasy day, but I don't think that there's a ton of upside for him here based on the spread. This one looks like it could get out of hand. Who else do we like? Maybe Kyrie Irving or Jason Tatum. Kyrie set for 47, but his ceiling is at 67.63. It's really going to come down to either Kyrie or Tatum here in order to get over that big number we need to get over. And I think I'm going to go Kyrie Irving. I think I'm going to take both James Harden and Kyrie Irving here based on the game totals, the spread, and the fact that they both have pretty high ceilings if they go in and just ball out tonight. So those will be the 3 guys that I select. And again, our goal is to break 186.5 fantasy points with their 3 combined fantasy point totals. So best of luck to you. Hopefully this video helps you out as a primer video for tonight's Monkey Knife Fight game types and looking at some of the players and their projections. And let me know what you think. Leave a comment down in the comment section below. Is there anyone that you like from this video? Somebody that maybe I didn't talk about that you're really feeling that might get you over this stat shootout goal of 186.5 fantasy points? Well, leave his name down below. Let me know why you like that guy and why you don't like Giannis or the Beard or Kyrie. Who are you taking out of this big 3 pick? But that's going to do it for me today, guys. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I hope to be able to do more of these monkey knife fight videos for you in the future. If you like what I'm doing here, leave a thumbs up for me so I know that you're feeling it and you want me to make more. So this is CJ for Out of Bounds DFS. Good luck tonight. Let's make some money over on MKF. And until the next one, guys, peace.